Okay, we're going live now.
Okay.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining Cybersecurity Career Talks. I have with me Nag Sheegihalli, and he is an identity and access.
Hey, Niloufer?
Yes, one second. Okay. So there was an echo coming because there was another window open.
Okay.
I apologize for that. He's an identity and access management expert. He's been in the fintech as well as FANG companies for the past over 16 years. And he manages the identity access management portfolio for MGM Grand Resorts. Hey, Nick, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. First of all, Niloufer, thanks a lot for inviting me on this forum. It's my opportunity to provide the background to the industry and my experience and how I entered here. But just a quick introduction about myself. I have 16 plus 16, 20 years of experience in the IT industry. Started my career as a Java developer. Worked for some of the major financial companies like Citi, JP Morgan, New York Stock Exchange, and went on to work for Microsoft for a couple of years. And then I recently joined like a year and a half ago with MGM Resorts International as a VP of Identity and Access Management. If anybody doesn't know, please don't confuse MGM with the MGM Studios. MGM Resorts started with the studios, but we are two different companies. But we manage casinos and then the resorts across the United States. And then MGM Resorts has around 15 plus casinos in the Las Vegas area.
Perfect. Before we get started, I would just like to read a brief disclaimer because both of us are doing this just to pay forward and we don't represent our companies. So I would just like to. One second. All right. So the views expressed in this presentation and during this session are the personal opinions of the participants and do not reflect the official policy or positions of their employers. This discussion is a volunteer-led effort to contribute to the profession and pay forward the many kindnesses and instances of support and guidance that the participants have received in the course of their career. So let's get started.
Sure, Niloufer.
So if we've done with the introduction, I'll just give my brief introduction. I am Niloufer Tamboly, and I am working for one of the biggest telcos in the US. I am the co-founder of IC Squared New Jersey chapter, as well as IC Step Up Skill, which helps people transition into a cybersecurity career. And let's get started. So, Nag, how do you get started in IAM? Suppose somebody wants to start in IAM, what do they do?
Sure. So let me just give a background of myself, right? I did not start my career in the security industry. Like a lot of professionals in the security might have started in the security. They might have worked on the SS or some of the security products. But I started with financial institutions managing their client profitability, revenue model, post-trade applications. Till 2013, like I was very passionate about what I was doing and had a very grip about the industry and the domain that I was working on. But in 2013 is when I got an opportunity from JP Morgan, where were looking for somebody to manage their investment bank's identity access management department. Most probably what I feel after like 10 years down the line is my ability of having a good knowledge about the industry and then the business that I was supporting in the investment bank really helped me because in the sense, identity access management, if you put it in a generic terms, it's all about what what an identity or what an employee can do with the resources that the company is trying to give it to everybody. And as part of my previous role, I had built one or the other way, I was somehow connected with identity access management. And while building my applications and supporting my applications, always had a thought about how do I make sure that the tools are or the resources are given to the appropriate people. Back then, I had no knowledge about there is an identity access management department, but at least we were trying to manage, if there is a trader, what kind of an access he should have, what data he should be seeing, versus if this is a trade desk head or a security head, then what he should be looking at. So I had the knowledge about architecting and building tools and the technologies specific to the domain and the business that I was supporting. So when I went for the interview, I think probably that helped me to have a command over the mastery. I did not know much about the tools at that point in time. Like I didn't use some of the IAM tools to integrate with my own applications, but I was not an expert in IAM. So that really helped me. So, but then once I started at JP Morgan, it was not a smooth journey because even though I had by then like around 15 plus years of experience, around 10 to 15, managing a large scale team, I wanted to make sure that I am not somebody who joined a large team just as a manager, but I always liked learning about the technologies. Thanks to coming to the New York, so I used to get almost like a 2 hours one way. So I used that time to go through the videos and then spend that time in learning and understanding what IAM domain in deep, and then what are the vendor products, and then how the solutions are being built. And then I could start correlating that with the general life, how large the identity access management domain itself, because what we are talking now is a workforce identity access management. But if you put everything into perspective, anything that we see digitally is an identity in the internet, whether it's a workforce identity or it's a consumer identity or any of the devices that we use today, everything is considered an identity. So in the next 10 years, identity is going to be a huge industry because we need to, like, one is technology is growing, we can't stop like, oh, let's not do this or let's not do that. The industry is going to grow with the IoT devices and then our ability to operate within the internet domain. But with that, we need to have someone who is able to monitor. And that's going to be identity access management domain experts who would be involved in making sure that how it is. So 10 years down the line, I don't have a regret because when I was making a shift from finance industry to security, also within the identity, not many people were really aware of this, what it is. And like a lot of colleagues of mine were like, are you sure that you are making the right decision? Because I was moving from the trading business to a security business.
Sure. And there's no looking back, right?
Oh, there is no looking back. Because when I look back, just the security and the identity industry is going to grow larger and larger. And as I speak now, I think everybody might be aware, we have 2 million plus open jobs within the cybersecurity across the globally, and around 800K just within the United States.
Sure. And another thing, what I also found was that you've seen the latest Verizon DBIR report, which has put stolen threads even above everything else. So if stolen threads are a problem, it means that, identity, like all those will have to be reset and like probably there's some kind of a problem going on. Coming back to somebody who's like trying to start off, what are basic skills, like maybe they need to know basics just to understand, like everything else, like obviously we talk about, but Active Directory, LDAP, what else?
So Active Directory LDAP is a beginning in the workforce identity space. But let me a little bit step back and then give the background about what an identity is. Like we all understand a literal meaning of English meaning of an identity. Identity is who I am and what I am, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what we are trying to understand. And if I put that into the like internet or digital domain perspective, so there are two big industries. One is the workforce identity, and then second is the consumer identity. So when I say workforce, an identity given to an employer, a contractor, if you're a student, an identity given by the university. So in that case, the identity is managed by the employer or the institution that is hiring you or inviting you. And then there is a second set of identity, that is the consumer identity, like my Uber account, my Lyft account, Amazon account. These are all consumer-based identities. So at a very high level, these are two big industries. The institution that I think there was an echo.
Yes.
Okay, so those are the two big industries. So I want people to understand before entering into the identity access management, have a very generic or common sense knowledge about, if I am a customer, if I am creating an account online with any of the service providers, so that itself I'm creating an identity. So what do I care about? Like my identity, like whom that customer can, whom that enterprise can share my information or credentials. So that has become a big thing in today's life, like GDPR, California Act, and all of that. So when we shift the gear back to the workforce identity, so in case of workforce identity, how do I make sure that we are protected workforce identity and the credentials for what resources they have an access to? Because if you go like a 10 to 15 years back, we all believed that having the very strong firewall around the company's network protected all of the resources. But post-COVID, everybody moved remote. And with the remote comes a big challenge of how do I make sure that my employees' access is streamlined, they do not have challenges. At the same time, I am protecting their access, and then they have access to one thing what they should be having to. So LDAP Active Directory was past like around 20 years, still they are relevant, but it's not that that is the only thing. There are a lot of things which we are talking today. How do I make sure that we protect everything without putting too many restrictions? That is something in the path of going to zero trust security. So zero trust is the concept. There is no vendor solution or product. If somebody comes and tells me that I have solved a problem for zero trust, I don't really believe, because journey for zero trust varies from company to company, depending on where they are. And a lot of large organizations, they are like built with the LDAP, Active Directory, a lot of legacy things. So from the identity perspective, we should have in mind, how do I make sure that I protect my legacy infrastructure as well as a lot of the workloads that we have put it into the cloud. And to your question, like what are some of the entry-level jobs? Like if I'm looking from the engineering perspective, it could be I am a junior engineer, security cloud administrator, or security cloud developer, customer identity engineer. And another division that I did not really touch is the privileged identity access management. So one, I spoke about the workforce identity, but then there comes a privileged identity. So privileged identities are those which provides you an additional access to an employee beyond their standard user account. So what that means is you might be an admin, or you might be a DBA, or you have a certain elevated access to perform something that all the standard users in the organizations do not have, like creating a computer, creating a database, updating the databases. So it's very important to make sure that we make a differentiation between the standard user access and the privileged identity, because lot of the times the standard user accounts are not well protected by the employees. So it's like we need to think through, how do I make sure that if I'm checking my email, I click something could get installed. So that all should be locked down. And as part of my job, if I'm supposed to go and start a database or like install a patch or something, so at that point in time, my standard access should be elevated to do that specific job with what I need to do. Like if you have seen some of the supply chain attacks or some of the most recent attacks, the way those attacks happened was culprits basically somehow got the access to a standard user. Probably users had leaked, or for whatever the reasons, they had an access to the standard user access. Once they sneaked into the company network, they were able to figure out privileged access and then crawl all the way to the directory AD domain control root access. From there, they could really harm the overall company, right? So keeping that in mind, we need to be aware of what the privileged access, and there are a lot of job opportunity even within the privileged access management.
Sure, thanks. That's great. So you touched upon a lot of stuff. You touched upon legacy. We're talking about like how are we going to connect that? So maybe something like federation, how that takes place, the products in that space, privilege access management, say CyberArk or Beyond Trust or whatever. And every product has their own certifications, etc. Right?
Right.
When somebody like you described, right? There are like junior roles. So somebody maybe fresh out of college, or maybe somebody who is interested in now getting into this thing. I'm not talking about somebody who has got like a few years behind on different domains in IT or something, but an entry level resume, what should they include? So which will like really in like you'll like decide on inviting them for an interview.
So one thing about the resume, right? So be honest with what you put in the resume, because just don't try to like copy whatever is there in the job description, then mimic that into the resume. Because one, it's very hard to find a cybersecurity professionals, and the person who is trying to interview is really looking for somebody who has that knowledge. If not, then they are ready to train. But don't give a false impression that you know everything, because it's very easy to like if you're not able to answer certain things, it's very easy for them to catch up with that, right? So one advice is be honest with what you know and what's your understanding on the security itself. Because, and very specific to the identity access management, identity access management is a pillar within the cybersecurity itself. Any of the cybersecurity courses would have one topic on identity access management. So getting any of the cybersecurity certifications and include them is a good thing, like CISSP, CompTIA. CompTIA is, I've seen a lot of new entrant trying to take the CompTIA Security Plus, those certificates. Or there is an institution called Identity Management Institution. They offer a lot of certifications. So they start with a lot of basic things, like what is identity governance and administration. And it's not very hard topic to understand. So when we say identity access and governance, we are talking about how do I make sure that I add an identity. Forget about the tools that we use. We can talk about the tools and the certification that comes with the tools. But getting the basic general knowledge of the industry and the domain itself really helps. And I can put up, give the links to some of the trainings. But understanding, learning through those trainings, what you learn in those cybersecurity generic programs helps. And some of the vendor-specific trainings are like the lot of large vendors. They do have their own certifications. Microsoft has invested heavily in the last 3 to 4 years. What I read is I think they're investing like almost 10 billion a year just on the security. And Azure AD is one of their core pillars. But just don't go with a Microsoft. Like all the vendor products are great. It depends on the organizations based on their need, what products they provide. But the concepts in all of those, at least the first few chapters in those certifications, when you start taking, they all talk about the basic knowledge about the identity, how to protect, how to govern, when to give an access to whom it should be. So if you're looking from the Microsoft perspective, Microsoft offers Identity Access Administrator Associate, Microsoft Identity Access Administrator. And there is another competitor for Microsoft, which is a lot of people might have seen. They are the leaders in the consumer identity space. They offer 2 certifications, one for workforce identity certifications and the customer identity certification. And in the IGS space, SailPoint, Savient, ForgeRock, Ping, and there are multiple vendors. But just from the, we use SailPoint at our place. I use SailPoint for a couple of years. Doesn't mean that SailPoint is the only product. But in the SailPoint, SailPoint provides 2 certifications, again, IIQ and then Identity Now. IIQ is their on-prem solution, which is like a legacy. Identity Now is their cloud solution. But technically, both of them start with the same concepts. And then when you go deep, they start changing the paths. And on the PIM-PAM space, CyberArk, Beyond Trust, Thycotic, these are vendors, and all of them have those basic certification that we can all try. And just giving the perspective from myself, till 2019, 2020, after my graduation from engineering, way back in like a 99, I did not spend much time in learning because I was just focused on my career. So when I was JP Morgan, I started feeling that I need to take some certifications. That is when I made a move to Microsoft. And then there, as part of my job, there are a lot of opportunity for me to learn. And I did like almost 3 to 4 certifications. It wasn't easy. It was not like I just click on buttons and then I get the certifications. I spent a lot of weekends in the night hours, but I was able to get the certifications. So it's just a time that we need to allocate, and then interest to love that industry that gives you, okay, what next? And that motivates to get the certification, then hunger to learn. So that's what I say it is very important.
Yes, definitely lifelong learning in our
Right.
business.
Yep.
We can't afford to because everything that we learn today is like going to be probably, replaced by something different.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, coming back to I want to provide people with what kind of roles. So there are systems integrators, like people who will implement a product for you. So there are jobs with those, and those could be like regular jobs. Those could be like contracts that you work with those vendors who will come and implement something. Then there is something where you are going to be a end user role, where somebody like your company, right? You need
Right.
people in your identity. What else am I missing? What other kind of like organizations and what kind of roles that people could be aiming for?
So I think it's a very large industry now. Cybersecurity has really expanded, and with cybersecurity identity also a very big domain now. All of the big 4 consulting companies have a very focused practice on the identity access management. Deloitte, PwC, KPMG, Accenture, all of that have a huge practices within the identity access management. Identity access management broadly can split into 3. From the job perspective, you can split into 3 departments. One is the development of the engineering department. I'm not talking about the products that the vendors build. So that's they cover that as a part of the software engineering, because you need to have a very specific programming language to build those products. Once those products are built, like CyberArk or Beyond Trust, SailPoint, then what we need is an engineer who can customize according to the company requirements or the use cases. So that I put it into the engineer or a configurator kind of a roles. And then there is another department which does the management or the operations part of it. So operations, it could be onboarding an application, onboarding the accounts. Then as part of the operations, still everything is not automated. That's a huge opportunity for within the identity space. But there are a lot of accounts which are created manually, and that's managed by the Identity Security Administration Department. So that department focuses on giving an access to the resources based on what they're asking. Then third comes the compliance in the audit department. So compliance department is all about, okay, I understand the business. I also understand the identity domain space. Now, how do I write a policy? When I say policy, which is basically if you are if you take a bank as an example, teller cannot be like, if you are an approver, then you cannot, if you're submitting an invoice, you cannot approve the same invoice. That's a conflict of interest. We call it a segregation of duties. So that falls into the compliance department. So so you have an opportunity, like with a business in knowledge, you could be best situated if you have a security mindset in the business. That's another opportunity where you can take your business knowledge and then come and be a on the business side, how do I write a segregation of duty policies? Or second part is we go through a lot of regulations in the audit. So constantly there is a need for us to pull the data and then give it to the audit for review. Like who has like when I talk about the review, the auditors are trying to know what kind of an access Nag has during a given period of time, and they want to make sure that the access that I have is appropriate to my current job role. Like if you read about some of the stories like London Whale or something, a user had a previous access, the access was not removed, and over the period of time, he used to basically manage his books with the previous access. Like companies have paid a lot of heavy fines. So companies are spending a lot of money on the compliance and the audit side as well, related to the identity. So this department makes sure that on a periodic basis, they review the access and then certify. And if there is the access that a user should not be having, then they make sure that the access is removed. So that's another third department which is focused on compliance audit.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So yes, access reviews are like IT auditors have access reviews all the time. Especially if you are an issuer, means you're listed on the stock exchange, and then you have to go through your SOX review. You've got your SOD conflicts, and I think various products provide you with that ability to, check for SOD conflicts. Now, I'll just like 2 minutes on what we're talking about. So the basic concept is that the custody of an asset, the accounting for it, and the recording of it should not be with the same person. So basically, to make sure that you cannot buy something and then you cannot approve it, and then you cannot like then appropriate it or misappropriate it. So that is like the basic concept of cybersecurity, which is like a segregation of duties. Even before cybersecurity in accounting, this is a basic concept. So I'm just like providing that because for people to understand what exactly we're talking about. So we've touched a little bit, but how important is product knowledge? And can I just like pick a product and specialize it in that, get certified in that, and then work as like maybe a contractor, maybe like with your company? Like, I mean, is that a good strategy for a person starting out?
Oh, definitely. I think one is a concept. So first, have a concepts about the domain itself, and then all of the products are built to secure, and they're competing in their own ways. But ultimately, all of those products do the same thing. If you pick one product, let's say Microsoft Identity or Azure AD or Okta or SailPoint, so you start with that and then look out for the opportunities available there. The best way to pick up something is join one of the consulting companies, because they do have a lot of practices where they can put you on customer accounts. That provides you an ability to learn quickly in different use cases. So start with one product, and then slowly you'll start expanding your knowledge. But ultimately, like we cannot marry ourselves for technology product, because every 3 years technology has to change. If a technology doesn't change, then that's going to be obsolete. So what we have seen in the last 10 years is technology changes very fast, and we should be able to adapt to that. And it's a constant learning process I mentioned earlier. So look up the latest products that are being used by the Fortune 500 companies, and then start pick one product, take a certification. A lot of companies also provide a free training, and they're all available on the YouTube. And also, if you go to the NIST, they have listed where you can get the training, which companies are providing. But yes, definitely, like pick one product which you feel comfortable. I suggest mostly start, if you are very new to this industry, start into the consulting space. Consulting space gets into two or three things, right? One is they have wide practices, and each customer has their unique problem to solve. So being a contractor, you get an opportunity to work on different use cases and then expand your knowledge. So once you expand your knowledge, then you can join the companies like MGM or others as a full-time employees, which provides you that, okay, I worked in different customer places, which gave me a different exposures based on the use cases. Then you can take that and go into a company where you can start growing your career.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. We've touched upon like different products, etc., but we've not like what about the cloud? Because AWS got IAM, like the policies, the setting stuff. What is your experience, and what about those roles, those jobs, or how to go about learning those things?
So we are in a situation, we are in the hybrid model right now. Anything that are born in the cloud, all of their resources and assets are in the cloud, and legacy companies, they have started moving to the cloud. There is a huge opportunity just within the cloud, and also for a hybrid space. Like even in my own case right now, we are trying to implement how do I secure my assets on-prem as well as in cloud. And we are coming with a hybrid approach of, okay, so I need to have a solution from identity perspective, which meets both the requirements. Like all the three major cloud providers have their own identity solution. I just spoke about Microsoft Identity solution, which is Azure AD. AWS has their own identity solution, as well as GCP. Google Cloud also has their own identity. So like once you start looking one of the cloud solution, the concepts are very similar, like how they, what they talk about identity, what they talk about storage. Like in case of Amazon, AWS, they might call it as a S3 buckets, but ultimately it's a storage space. And they're talking about roles and then the security groups, and that's the basic concept. So start with one cloud, and there is a huge opportunity, because just managing the cloud and then taking that knowledge and then making sure that how do I take my legacy assets, because cloud gives a lot of ease of use access, and then we want to give the similar capabilities for our on-prem solutions. So a lot of companies are coming with the solutions which you can take your on-prem resources, integrate that to the cloud, and then do the authentication and MFA through the cloud solutions, right? So there is a huge industry within the cloud identity.
Sure, sure. So basically, when we talk about the cloud, we are like one of the things when you're looking at this whole industry or this particular domain, ease of use. You said that, right? Ease of use.
Right.
So I do not want to be logging into 10,000 different things. So that is where your whole federation comes into play. Wherever your assets are, how do I share that? How do I OAuth, your OpenID Connect, so even your like APIs, right? Like how are you going to so I think it's a huge field. There is like a lot of specialization that you do, and there is a lot of general knowledge that you have, which has not changed. Like when we're talking about basic concepts and this thing, how do you start with identity? How do you like authorization? How do you, so that whole life cycle, right? When you're
like if you look at the our own journey into the security space, right? So we started with user ID initially back in the 80s. Just you had a login ID, you could basically use it to log in. Then we started coming with the passwords, something to verify. But that user ID password verification happened in the application. If you started your career back in 80s and 90s, we all knew that the passwords are stored in clear text, and we compared, okay, I entered ABCD in the database, we verified Nag entered ABCD. And then in that industry started growing. And then we started coming with the user ID passwords for each and every application. Today, myself, I don't remember all the user ID passwords I have for all of my accounts. So that is where we started coming with the concept as SSO. But now, passwords are very weak to break. Like the way industry moves, there is another industry, hackers, they also start evolving themselves. And it's not, your passwords are not safe anymore. Even though it is encrypted, whatever the strong password you say, you try to come up with, still hackers are able to break that. So what we are moving towards is passwordless authentication. So passwordless is again a mindset where I'm not entering any credentials, but we are using our biometric or a device generated certificate, which is more difficult to crack than a user managed some kind of a text. If it could be 8 or 10 or 16 characters, but hackers are able to get through that. So this industry is going to grow. Like in the last 20 years, if you have seen, we just started with something what I know as a login ID, to where we are saying that I want to take all of the user ID passwords, and I'm going to verify based on your biometrics or like the device that you carry all the time. I'll use that to authenticate yourself. So the industry is going to grow and going to transform over a period of time, but keeping up with it and then trying to learn what it means. And then in the end, it's all about how do I make sure we are able to secure the identity that is trying to access the resource in the organization.
Sure. Now we've come to our last leg of our conversation today. So are there any specific, and we talked about like product, but are there any specific certifications? Because not everybody who's starting out in their career can have like a CISSP, and probably CISSP is too wide also. So are there any like narrowly focused stuff which says, oh yeah, it's great to have this certification, like say maybe AWS? I don't know. I'm just asking you, what are the certifications that you would want somebody to have?
Yeah, sure. So one is Identity Management Institute certifications. They have a lot of very different certification just to get the identity concept. That those certifications vendor neutral. And then second, definitely Microsoft has a Microsoft Azure cloud knowledge. So I took that. It's not much of a Microsoft centric, but it just gives the cloud knowledge. Any of the 101 certifications by Microsoft or AWS provides you what is a cloud, how things are secured within the cloud, and you can take the AWS identity certification or Microsoft Identity Access Administrator Associate. Those are very good certifications, but provide a very depth knowledge about how Microsoft is trying to protect the resources in Azure AD. And I have done that. The first 2 to 3 domains or the chapters focus on the identity. They're like the first 2 domains at least, focus being generic, not product specific. And then later on, they go very specific with how Microsoft does it in their own cloud space. Definitely like getting the AWS identity certification, Microsoft certification helps a lot.
Okay, thank you so much. Last question, and probably you've got asked this like 10,000 times. And do I need to know or learn how to code?
Oh, definitely. There are few compliance in the operations. Probably you might not need to code, but you want to be a really geek in the identity access management industry. Right? You want to know how the protocols work. Yes, you need to know how to code because you want to be very specific. Sometimes you get a vendor product, but you want to go beyond that to customize for your own specific. If you want to be on the engineering part, then definitely you need to know how to code. But if you want to focus on operation side or the audit and the compliance side, yeah, you don't need to code.
Okay, so can we say that at least learn Python?
Oh yeah, so
learn not Python, anything else.
Yes, learn Python, learn Java. Those would be really helpful.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know it's a Saturday and Saturdays are busy, but thank you for taking the time and helping people out. Thanks. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Niloufer, for giving me this opportunity. Have a nice weekend.